The planet Vareth was not a place for life. The sky was always dark. Red lightning flashed across endless storms. The air was heavy with dust and ice. Only scavengers and outlaws came here, searching for old wrecks, lost ships, or anything they could sell. Among those scavengers was an alien captain named Karel. His ship, the Iron Fang, was old and slow, but it still worked. Karel didn't believe in legends or ghosts. He only believed in survival. But that day, something strange happened. As he flew low over the frozen wasteland, his ship's radar beeped. A weak signal appeared on the screen, a distress beacon. At first, he ignored it. Old beacons went off all the time. Most were traps or broken machines. But then his ship's computer translated the signal. "This is Colony Ship Horizon. We are stranded on Vareth. Survivors need help." Karel froze. Human language, he leaned closer. "That's impossible," he whispered. Humans had disappeared decades ago after the Great War. Every alien in the galaxy believed they were extinct, wiped out by their own battles. Karel opened the communication channel again. The signal was weak, but he heard a voice, tired, broken, but still alive. "If anyone can hear this, we're not leaving until every one of us is safe." Static filled the cabin. Then silence. Karel sat back in his chair, his four-fingered hand shaking slightly. No one used that kind of message anymore. Every other species abandoned the weak. If a crew was lost, they moved on. But humans, they always said the same thing. No one gets left behind. He looked out at the storm below. The planet rumbled with thunder, glowing red under the lightning. Every instinct told him to leave, to forget this and move on. But his mind whispered, what if it's true? What if humans are still out there? With a slow breath, Karel pushed a button. "Set course to the beacon," he ordered. The Iron Fang dove through the clouds, shaking as wind and ice slammed against its hull. He landed near a deep crater filled with wreckage. Metal torn apart, flames frozen in ice. It looked like a ship had fallen from the sky and shattered across the valley. Karel stepped out, wrapping his cloak against the storm. His boots sank into the snow with a crunch. He followed the signal to a half-buried hull, the words horizon barely visible through the frost. Inside, the corridors were silent. He found old bloodstains on the walls, broken helmets, and empty supply crates. But something strange caught his eye. A human flag still standing upright in the middle of the corridor. It was torn, frozen, but still there. Karel reached out and touched it. It felt like touching history itself. Then, a sound. Footsteps. He turned quickly, pulling his plasma pistol. Through the thick mist, he saw footprints leading deeper into the wreck. Fresh ones. Someone was alive. Karel followed the trail through dark halls until he reached an open doorway. He peeked through and froze. There were 3 humans sitting around a small fire made from broken panels. Their faces were tired, dirty, but their eyes were bright. One of them, a woman in a cracked uniform, was speaking quietly into a small radio. "This is Captain Maria Holt of the Horizon. If anyone can hear this, please respond. We still have survivors." Karel felt his heart race. They were real. He stepped forward slowly, hands raised. The humans jumped up, pointing makeshift weapons, pieces of metal, a flare gun, even a knife. Maria's voice was sharp. "Who are you?" Karel lowered his pistol. "My name is Karel. I heard your signal." For a long moment, no one spoke. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside. Finally, Maria lowered her weapon a little. "You're not from the Union, are you?" Karel shook his head. "No, I'm just a scavenger." One of the humans laughed bitterly. "A scavenger? Great, so you're here to rob us?" Karel paused. "No, I came because I heard your message. You said you wouldn't leave until everyone was safe." He looked around the wreck. "But your ship? There's nothing left," Maria straightened. Despite her exhaustion, her voice was strong. "We don't abandon our own. Some of my people are still out there, lost in the storm. Until I find them, we're not leaving." Karel studied her. The logic made no sense. The storm was deadly and her people were likely gone. But her eyes, they burned with something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. "Your kind is strange," Karel said softly. "No other species would risk so much for the lost." Maria smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's why we're still here." Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Karel looked up and saw a shadow in the clouds, a massive alien warship moving slowly above them. He didn't recognize the design, but its red markings meant danger. He turned back to Maria. You said this world was empty, but it's not anymore. Maria grabbed her rifle, her eyes narrowing. Then it looks like we're not alone. And the war's not over. Carell felt a chill run through him. For the first time in years, he wasn't just a scavenger. He was standing at the edge of something much bigger, something dangerous. And as the red light from the enemy ship flashed through the storm, he whispered, "The humans are back. And they're not done fighting." The storm outside grew stronger. Winds screamed through the broken walls of the horizon. Carell stood near the fire, watching the humans move. Even though they were hurt, hungry, and freezing, they worked like a team. One man checked the power cells, another fixed the heater, while Captain Maria Holt studied a cracked data pad. Her face was pale from the cold, but her eyes stayed sharp. Carell couldn't understand it. These humans were half dead, yet they kept going as if nothing could stop them. He finally spoke. "Why are you still here? You could escape with me. My ship still flies." Maria didn't even look up. "We don't leave without the others." Carell frowned. "The others?" She nodded. "There were 60 of us on board. We found 20 alive. The rest are still out there, trapped in the snow. Until we find them, we don't leave." Carell looked toward the window where red lightning flashed across the sky. "Your people are probably gone," he said quietly. "This planet kills anything that stays too long." Maria turned her eyes to him. "Maybe, but we don't abandon our own." Her words hit him harder than he expected. No one talked like that anymore. Not in this galaxy. A loud noise broke the silence on a deep, distant roar. The walls trembled. The fire flickered. Carell rushed to the window and saw something move in the storm. A massive, four-legged creature, its eyes glowing yellow. It was a Varethian stalker, a predator that hunted anything that moved. "It's coming this way," shouted one of the men. Maria grabbed her rifle even though the weapon looked damaged. Carell drew his plasma pistol. The humans formed a line like trained soldiers. The beast burst through the wreckage, knocking down metal beams. It roared, its breath hot and foul. Carell fired first. A flash of blue plasma hit the beast's shoulder. It screamed and turned toward him. Then the humans opened fire with old rifles and makeshift bombs. The sound filled the hall. Smoke and sparks filled the air. The creature crashed into the wall, bleeding black smoke. Still, it fought back, smashing its tail through the floor. Carell fell, hitting his shoulder hard. Before he could get up, the creature lunged and straight at him. Maria jumped in front, shooting point blank into its face. The rifle exploded, and the creature fell with a thunderous crash. Silence returned. Carell stared at her, shocked. You saved me," he said, still breathing fast. Maria smiled faintly. "You were helping us. That makes you part of the team." Carell didn't know what to say. No one had ever called him part of the team before. After the fight, they moved the fire and patched the walls to block the wind. Carell helped the humans gather supplies. He worked beside them, handing out tools and helping repair a generator. He noticed something strange. Humans talked, joked, and even laughed while they worked. They had lost everything, yet somehow they still found a reason to smile. One of the younger men, a soldier named Reed, offered Carell a piece of dried food. "Not great," Reed said, "but better than starving." Carell hesitated, then took it. It tasted terrible, salty, bitter, and old, but somehow it felt warm. For the first time in years, he felt included. Later that night, Maria sat by the fire with Carell. The storm outside howled like a monster. Carell asked, "Why do you keep fighting for others? Even when it's hopeless?" Maria stared into the flames. "Because once someone did the same for me. I was a kid on Mars when the war started. My family was trapped under fire. A rescue team came anyway. They could have left, but they didn't. They saved us all. Since that day, I made a promise, never abandon anyone." Carell listened silently. Her story reminded him of something. Long ago, his own people used to help strangers too. Before greed changed them. Then the radio crackled. "Captain Holt, this is Lieutenant Price. We found survivors, 6 of them, but we're pinned down by hostiles." Maria jumped to her feet. "Price? You're alive?" "Yes, ma'am, but not for long. Alien raiders. They've got weapons and we need help." Carell stood too. "Raiders here?" Maria grabbed her rifle. "They must have followed the crash. They'll kill everyone for scraps." She turned to Carell. "You said your ship still flies?" Carell nodded slowly. Barely. But yes. Then you're coming with me, she said. We're getting our people back. Minutes later, they stepped outside into the storm. Snow whipped around them like knives. Carell led Maria through the blizzard toward the Iron Fang. As they reached the ship, Carell hesitated. You don't even know if you'll make it. Why risk it for 6 more people? Maria smiled under her frost-covered helmet. Because there are... The Iron Fang shook as it cut through the thick storm. Winds howled, snow smashed against the glass, and warning lights blinked red across the cockpit. Carell gripped the controls tightly while Captain Maria Holt sat beside him, scanning her broken communicator. Lieutenant Price, this is Holt. Do you read me? Static. Price, hold your position! We're coming. No answer. Just the sound of the storm. Carell glanced at her. Your signal is too weak. They might not even be alive. Maria's voice was calm but sharp. Then we'll find out for ourselves. He wanted to argue, but he didn't. Something about her voice, steady, unbreakable, made him believe she could survive anything. The ship's radar beeped. A red dot blinked on the screen. Carell frowned. That's them. 12 kilometers east. Maria leaned closer. And the other dots? He zoomed in. Raiders. 2 hover tanks and several ground vehicles. They're closing in. Maria gritted her teeth. Then we don't have time. She pulled open a compartment and started loading old rifles. Carell watched, confused. You think 3 rifles can stop a tank? She smiled. No, but I don't plan to stop them. I plan to distract them. The Iron Fang descended low over the frozen plains. Below, Carell could see fire and movement. Flashes of gunfire in the blizzard. A small human group was trapped behind a ridge surrounded by alien raiders with glowing armor. Those are Vorn scavengers, Carell said quietly. They kill anyone for spare parts. Maria's eyes narrowed. Not today. She strapped on a broken helmet and turned to Carell. I need you to land behind that ridge and use your ship's guns to cover us. Carell hesitated. You'll be outnumbered 10 to 1, Maria smiled faintly. We've had worse odds. The ship touched down behind the ridge with a rough landing. Carell stayed at the controls as Maria and 2 of her men jumped out into the storm. The cold bit into their skin, but they didn't slow down. Blaster fire lit the snow in orange flashes. The raiders laughed, thinking the fight was already won. Then Carell opened fire. Twin plasma cannons roared from the Iron Fang, striking the raiders' tanks. The explosion sent fire into the sky. Maria charged forward, shouting over the wind. Move, move! Get the survivors! Her voice carried like thunder. The trapped humans lifted their heads. They couldn't believe it. Their captain had come back for them. Carell focused, firing again and again, keeping the raiders pinned down. He watched through the sensors as Maria and her team reached the wounded group. One soldier, Lieutenant Price, limped toward her, covered in blood. Captain, I told them you'd come, he said weakly. Maria smiled. Of course we came. Then a loud beeping filled Carell's cockpit. The radar flashed red, more hostiles incoming. Captain, he shouted through the comm. Another group is approaching from the north. At least 20. Maria looked at her people. We can't fight them all. Carell's claws tightened on the controls. We'll never outrun them either. Maria turned to him over the radio. Then we don't run, he blinked. What? We make a stand. Long enough for everyone to get on board. They formed a wall of bodies behind a line of broken debris. Humans aimed their rifles. Carell joined them with his plasma pistol. The storm raged harder, the snow now glowing red from the enemy's weapon lights. Then the raiders appeared, dozens of them armored and shouting. Blaster fire exploded around them. Humans fired back, hitting targets with perfect aim. Carell couldn't believe what he was seeing. These people were injured, half frozen and outnumbered, yet they fought like an army. One human soldier fell, hit in the chest. Maria ran to drag him back behind cover. Carell shouted, "Leave him! You'll die out there!" Maria yelled over her shoulder, not leaving anyone behind. Bullets flew past her head. She ignored them, pulling the wounded man to safety. Carell felt something burn in his chest, not fear, but respect. He stood, roaring, and fired both plasma pistols at once. The raiders turned toward him. His shots tore through their front line. Maria looked back and saw him fighting beside them, an alien who could have run but stayed. For the first time, she smiled at him like a friend. Finally, Carell shouted, "The ship is ready. Everyone get inside." Maria helped the last man onto the ramp. Then she turned to look at the field, bodies, smoke, and fire everywhere. The Iron Fang lifted off, engines screaming. A few raiders fired rockets, but the ship dodged between the lightning bolts. As they rose above the clouds, the planet below looked like a sea of storms and death. Maria fell back into her seat covered in snow and ash. Carell looked at her quietly. You risked everything for a few people. She glanced at him and replied, They're not just people. They're family. Out here, that's all we've got. Carell said nothing for a long time. He looked at the rescued humans and wounded, scared, but alive, and finally said, Your kind, you fight for each other. No one else does that anymore. Maria smiled tiredly. Then maybe that's why we're still alive. As the Iron Fang disappeared into the red clouds, Carell's sensors flashed again. He frowned. Something's wrong. I'm detecting another signal, same frequency as your distress beacon. Maria looked up sharply. Another human signal? He nodded slowly. Yes, but this one, it's not coming from the surface. It's coming from orbit. They both exchanged a look of shock. Then someone else is up there, Maria whispered. And they know we're alive. The Iron Fang climbed higher, toward the dark sky where a new danger, and maybe new hope, waited above. The Iron Fang rose through the red clouds, shaking as thunder exploded around it. Carell's claws gripped the control sticks, trying to steady the ship. Sparks burst from the panels and the alarms screamed. Captain Maria Holt stood beside him, holding onto the chair as the ship tilted. Can we make it through? Carl's dark eyes watched the flashing radar. The storm is stronger than I've ever seen. Even my engines can't hold much longer. Maria glanced at the screen that showed the other human signal, the one coming from orbit. We have to reach that ship. If someone's out there, they can help us. Carol frowned. If we don't burn in the atmosphere first. The ship jolted again, throwing everyone off balance. Behind them, humans held onto the walls trying to keep their equipment from flying. Lightning flashed so bright it blinded them for a second. Then, for the first time in hours, the storm went silent. The Iron Fang broke through the top of the clouds into clear space. For a moment it felt peaceful, until Carell saw the shape floating ahead. A massive wrecked cruiser orbited the planet, torn in half, but still glowing with faint lights. It wasn't alien. It was human. Maria's eyes widened. It's the Resolute, one of our long-range colony ships. I thought they were all destroyed. Carell checked his scanners. No life signs. The ship's engines are dead. But before Maria could reply, a voice crackled through the radio. This is Commander Ruiz. Any human signal respond? Maria gasped. They're alive. She grabbed the mic. This is Captain Maria Holt of the Horizon. We hear you, Commander. Static. Then a weak reply. Thank God. We thought no one survived. But listen, you have to leave orbit. The storm isn't natural. Maria frowned. What do you mean? The Vorn raiders aren't alone. They've activated something in the planet's core. A weapon left from the old wars. It's building energy. If it fires, the signal cut off. Carell's scanners went red. Energy spiked from the surface. It's rising fast, Maria shouted. Get us out of here! Carell pulled the ship up, engines burning. Below them, Vareth's cloud started glowing. Bright white cracks of energy ripping across the planet. Lightning shot into space like spears. The Iron Fang rocked violently as one bolt struck the hull, tearing away armor plates. Shields down, Carell shouted. We can't take another hit. Maria held onto the chair, her face lit by the flashing light. Then we make sure everyone else survives before we go down. Carell looked at her like she was insane. You want to go back? There are still people on the surface, and the ones we couldn't reach. We have to warn them. Carell shook his head. That's suicide. Maria's voice turned cold and firm. Then we die doing the right thing. For a long second, Carell stared at her. Then he exhaled slowly. Fine, but I'm going down with you. The Iron Fang turned back toward the storm. It dove through fire and lightning, engines screaming. Carell's hands shook as he forced the ship lower. Navigation is blind, he shouted. I can't see anything. Maria grabbed the emergency transmitter. All survivors on Vareth, this is Captain Holt. The planet's core is unstable. Evacuate immediately. Her voice echoed through the storm. No one answered, then suddenly a faint reply. Captain Holt, this is Sergeant Vale. We copy. We're in the northern crater trapped under debris. Maria smiled through the chaos. Hold on, we're coming. Carl sighed. You humans really are crazy. They found the crater, a deep wound in the planet filled with fire and broken metal. The humans inside waved flashlights weakly. Carell hovered the ship as low as he could while Maria and 2 soldiers lowered a rescue cable. The storm howled like a monster. Wind slammed against them. The ship's hull cracked and groaned. Faster, Carell yelled. The energy surge is almost ready to blow. Maria reached out and grabbed one of the trapped men by the arm, pulling him aboard. Then another. Then a third. One by one they came up, but a piece of the crater wall broke apart, smashing into the Iron Fang's wing. The ship spun wildly. Maria lost her grip and fell, hitting the deck hard. Carell struggled to keep control. Engines failing, he shouted. If we don't leave now, we die. The Iron Fang floated above the burning planet, smoke rising from its damaged hull. Every system was failing. Power low, weapons half broken, engines overheating. But Carell and Captain Maria Holt didn't have time to rest. In front of them, the Vorn battleship loomed like a metal mountain. It was 10 times their size, covered in red armor and glowing cannons. Dozens of smaller enemy ships swarmed around it like angry insects. Carell's claws tightened on the controls. We can't win this fight, he said quietly. Maria stood behind him, watching the radar as more red dots appeared. Maybe not, she replied, but we can buy time for the others. Carell frowned. Others? Maria turned to her crew, the wounded survivors from the horizon. That distress beacon is still active. Someone out there might hear us. We just have to hold on long enough. Her people nodded without question. Even injured, even scared, they were ready to fight again. Carell couldn't understand it. How humans could face certain death and still smile. He'd spent his life running from danger. They ran toward it. The enemy fleet began to close in. Red beams of energy sliced through the darkness, lighting up the black sky. Here they come, shouted Reed, the young soldier manning the side turret. Carell pushed the ship into a dive. The Iron Fang rolled through the first volley of fire. Explosions shook the hull, sparks flying across the cockpit. Maria grabbed the intercom. All hands, hold positions. Return fire! Plasma cannons fired from the ship's sides, striking 2 of the enemy fighters. They exploded in balls of light, but for every ship they hit, 5 more appeared. The Iron Fang was surrounded. Carell shouted over the alarms. Shields at 20%. Maria didn't hesitate. Then we use the hull as a shield. Fly straight into them. Carell turned to her in disbelief. Straight into them? She smiled grimly. They won't expect it. Carell growled under his breath but obeyed. He pushed the thrusters forward and the Iron Fang roared like a beast. The ship dove straight at the Vorn fighters. The aliens panicked, firing wildly. The Iron Fang tore through their formation, crashing through one fighter and spinning past another. Inside, everything shook. Metal screamed. But somehow the humans held their ground. Maria barked orders. Reed, take out their engines. Vale, aim for their sensor arrays. The humans moved like one mind. Even Carell, the alien captain who once worked alone, shouted along with them. He felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, not greed. Something stronger. Belonging. Suddenly, the main cannon of the Vorn battleship began to charge. A red glow formed at its front, growing brighter every second. Carell's scanners screamed. That cannon will vaporize us in one shot. Maria stared at the giant weapon through the window. Then we hit it before it fires. Carell turned to her. You want to attack that thing? Maria looked calm. You said your engines were fast enough for one last run, right? Carell hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. One last run, she smiled. Then let's make it count. The Iron Fang turned sharply toward the battleship. The storm clouds below glowed red as the planet's core continued to burn. Lightning flashed across the sky as the small broken ship charged straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. Carell shouted, Hold tight. The ship dove, weaving through enemy fire. Explosions burst around them. Pieces of metal scraped past their hull. Maria's voice came over the intercom. All cannons, fire everything we've got. Every weapon on the Iron Fang roared at once. Plasma, rockets, flares, even debris was launched toward the massive cannon. The Vorn battleship's shield flickered. For a second, just a second, it dropped. Now, Maria shouted. Carell fired the main plasma cannon directly into the red core, A blinding flash filled the sky. The enemy weapon exploded, fire tearing through the battleship's hull. The shockwave threw the Iron Fang backward, spinning out of control. Inside the ship, alarms screamed. Carell tried to steady it, but the controls were dead. Engines gone. Power gone. Maria crawled to the window, watching the enemy fleet break apart in panic. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Carell smiled weakly, blood on his lip. "You humans are insane. But you win." The ship shook again. The last remaining Vorn fighter fired one final shot. The blast hit the Iron Fang's side, tearing through the cargo bay. Fire spread fast. Carell shouted, "Evacuate! Everyone to the escape pods!" The humans didn't argue. They grabbed the wounded and helped each other move. Maria was the last to leave. She turned to Carell. "Come with us," he shook his head. "Someone has to keep this ship steady until you launch." Maria frowned. "That's suicide." Carell gave a faint smile. "I learned from the best." Maria looked at him for a long second, then saluted. "Thank you, Captain." As the escape pods launched, Carell sat in the burning cockpit. The flames reflected in his eyes. He looked out at the stars and at the dying battleship, at the pods flying toward safety. He whispered softly, "Humans never abandon their own. And neither will I." He pulled the final lever. The Iron Fang's damaged engines roared one last time, pushing the ship directly into the Vorn flagship. A massive explosion lit up the sky above Vareth. For a moment it looked like a second sun. From below, the human survivors watched as the light faded into the clouds. No one spoke. Maria's voice finally broke the silence. "He saved us all." She looked toward the stars, her eyes wet but proud. "Rest easy, Carell. You're one of us now." The pods floated silently through space. Behind them, the storm on Vareth began to fade. The fire was gone. The planet was quiet, and in that quiet, a new signal appeared on Maria's scanner. A voice, calm, mechanical, human. "This is Earth Command. To any survivors receiving this, you are not alone. We are coming." Maria smiled faintly through her tears. "Then it's not over yet." The survivors watched the stars ahead, tired, broken, but alive. The battle for the horizon was over, but the war for humanity's return had just begun. The blackness of space stretched endlessly around the tiny escape pods. Each pod carried a handful of human survivors, tired, silent, floating in the dark. The battle was over. The Iron Fang and Captain Carell were gone. Maria Holt sat by the small window, staring at the fading light from the explosion far behind. It looked like a small star now. "A star born from sacrifice," Reed whispered softly. "He really did it, didn't he?" "He stayed behind." Maria nodded slowly. "He saved us all. Just like he said he would." The others sat quietly. Some cried. Some just closed their eyes. For the first time in years, humans weren't fighting. They were remembering. Hours passed. The pods drifted through the frozen dark, guided only by weak thrusters. Supplies were low. Communication was almost dead. Vale checked the scanner. "Captain, we only have oxygen for another 16 hours. Maria didn't answer. She was staring at the small beacon light blinking on her wrist. The last signal from Earth. It repeated the same words again and again. "This is Earth Command. To any human survivors, you are not alone." Those words were the only warmth in the cold. Suddenly, a small blip appeared on the radar. Reed leaned forward. "Something's out there." The others turned. At first they thought it was just debris, but then lights appeared, blinking in formation. "Ships," Vale whispered. "Multiple ships. Closing fast." Maria's heart pounded. "Friend or enemy?" The radio cracked with static. Then a deep, calm voice came through. "Unknown pods, this is Earth Relief Fleet Task Force Nova. Identify yourself." Everyone froze. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. Maria grabbed the mic. Her voice shook. "This is Captain Maria Holt of the colony ship Horizon. We thought Earth was gone." A short pause, and then the voice replied. "Negative, Captain. Earth still stands, and we've been waiting for this signal." The survivors broke into cries and laughter. Some hugged each other. Some just stared, too stunned to speak. Maria covered her face, tears streaming down. "Carell, you did it," she whispered. "You got us home." Moments later, giant shadows filled the windows. Massive human warships glided past, sleek, silver, and powerful. Each carried the symbol of the United Earth Command. Reed stared in awe. "I've never seen ships like these." Vale smiled weakly. We've missed a lot, huh? The fleet's commander appeared on the holoscreen, an older man in a dark uniform, medals shining on his chest. Welcome home, Horizon survivors. You've been through hell, Maria saluted weakly. Sir, we lost many good people. And one very good friend. The commander nodded. We know. We received the full transmission from the Iron Fang. Your alien ally, Karel, sent his last coordinates before impact. He saved more than your crew, Captain. He gave Earth a warning. Maria frowned. A warning? The commander's face darkened. The Vorn Empire. They're spreading fast. Karel's message showed their fleet movements. And it wasn't just Vareth. They're preparing for war across the galaxy. A heavy silence filled the pod. Reed muttered, so this isn't over. The commander looked firm. No, Captain. This is only the beginning. But thanks to you, and him, we're ready this time. Days later, the survivors stood on the deck of the flagship Sol Invictus. Through the giant window, they saw Earth, bright, blue, and alive. Maria couldn't stop staring. It had been 20 years since she last saw it. Home, she whispered. We're back. Reed smiled. And not extinct. Vale added, You think they'll believe what happened? Maria looked out at the stars. They'll believe when they see what's coming. The next morning, the humans gathered in the Hall of Remembrance. It was quiet, filled with light and flags from lost colonies. Ane,